Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So I am back with a movie review, and today I'm going to be talking about the live adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon. I was fortunate enough to be invited to an early screening of this movie by Universal Pictures in London. It was an immersive experience where we got thrown into the world of Berk. They had different places for photo opportunities, there were flight rooms, there was music, there were actors. It was the most incredible experience, and if you're interested in seeing more of it, then the last video on my channel is my vlog of that day. It was so surreal, so special, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to go to this event. But when we were there and we watched the movie, they told us that we weren't allowed to post a review until June the 9th, when it is officially released in cinemas here in the UK. That meant that in my screening vlog I wasn't able to talk about the movie, and so instead I'm filming this review to go up on June the 9th. So if you're watching this, it means it is officially How to Train Your Dragon live action release day. So before I talk in detail about the movie, where do I stand with How to Train Your Dragon and what were my expectations going into this film? How to Train Your Dragon is one of my all-time favorite movie franchises. I saw the first movie on TV a few years after its release and I fell in love with it, and ever since then I have absolutely adored the franchise. I've seen all the movies, I've seen all the shorts, I've seen all the TV shows. I love it so much. I love it so much. When they announced they were doing a live action of it, I was beyond excited, because a live action How to Train Your Dragon gives us a chance to essentially experience the movie for the first time all over again. I never got to see the first How to Train Your Dragon movie in the cinema, and so this was my chance to actually see that story on the big screen, and I was so excited. I reacted to the trailers when they were released, and you can actually watch my reactions on my YouTube channel if you want to see what I thought of the trailers when I first watched them. And my excitement for the movie never faltered. At any point did I think, oh, actually maybe this isn't a good idea. I have always looked forward to this live action movie. So what did I think of it? Now, spoiler warning, I'm going to talk about the whole movie in detail, including things that they have changed, taken out, added, etc. etc. So if you want to go into the new How to Train Your Dragon live action movie without any spoilers on what it is like compared to the animated movie, then don't watch this review yet. Go and watch it and then come back here. When it first started, I was a little thrown off, and the main thing that kind of caught me off guard was how tall Hiccup is. In the animation, he is tiny compared to the adults. Like, there is a huge size difference between the teenagers and the adults in the animated movie, but that just doesn't exist in the live action. And it did make Hiccup and the other teenagers in the movie feel much older than they actually are, but I eventually got used to it. And honestly, the sizing isn't actually like a bad thing about the movie. It's just a realistic thing, because in reality a lot of teenagers are really tall. Once they've had their growth spurt, like, that's it, they're practically adult height. I used to be a teacher and I have taught teenagers, and a lot of the time those teenagers would often be taller than me. That's just how people grow, and I'm pretty certain, I think Mason was around 16 when he actually filmed this movie, so it's not even like they cast an adult to play a teenager. Mason is actually around Hiccup's age, just a little bit older. Just part of it being live action, it is going to be more realistic, and the animation, lots of things including the sizing between the teenagers and adults was exaggerated because it was an animation and they were able to do that. The only thing that I do wonder is, with the teenagers already being so tall and looking much more grown up, and the fact that they're releasing the live action How to Train Your Dragon 2 in 2 years' time, how are they going to showcase the 5-year time skip that happens between the first and the second movie? Because the actors playing the teenagers aren't actually going to look that much different. I'm sure they'll find a way to do it. I'm just curious to see how it ends up looking. But watching the live action, there were obviously certain scenes that really stood out to me. Forbidden Friendship, oh, I sobbed. That scene felt just as special in the live action. It was absolutely beautiful, so stunning. And one of my favorite things about this movie is that they brought John Powell back to do the soundtrack, and he, for the most part, kept the music the same as the original movie. He just added in bits and changed bits and amped bits up to make it more intense. Since it is now live action, it is more intense than the animated movie. At the core of the soundtrack, it was the same music that we had in the original film. The only thing that I found was kind of different when watching the live action, and it especially stood out during the Forbidden Friendship scene. Toothless Toothless didn't seem to be as expressive in this movie, but again, that's not a bad thing. That doesn't make it bad. It's just a realistic change. So it still felt like Toothless, but it was a more realistic Toothless, which I really enjoyed seeing. Another key scene that I'm sure everyone was excited to see was Test Drive. I literally could not breathe during that scene. I was there like wide-eyed, holding my breath, gripping the arm of my chair. I was like, oh my god, it was insane. It was so intense. I was also sat front row, so it was like I was right there. The same goes for basically all of the flight scenes throughout this movie. I think they definitely put a lot of emphasis on the flight in the live action because they knew that that's like what's going to have the biggest impact watching it in live action, and like, oh, they achieved making an impact. You really felt like you were on that dragon, like you felt like you were flying through the sky with Toothless and Hiccup, and that happened in all of the flight scenes, not just Test Drive, but Test Drive in particular. Woo! I also really liked the music change that they did. It's very different to the animated one and was just a nice little switch up to kind of surprise us, because all of us know that Test Drive scene like the back of our hand, so to actually be surprised by that scene really elevated the experience. This live action definitely focused on making things more realistic, and the emotion that they both added in with extra scenes and lines, and also just the way that these actors portrayed their characters in certain moments, it added so much emotion that I felt the original animated movie didn't have. It elevated it so much for me. A couple of moments where that extra emotion really hit and was noticeable. After Stoick disowns Hiccup, there is actually the moment where he kind of realizes what he's done in the animated movie, and they kept that for the live action, but they kind of played into it even more, and the emotion that Gerard Butler showed in that moment really hit. Another moment that really hit was when Hiccup wakes up at the end of the movie and realizes that he's lost his leg, because again, there is a brief moment in the animated movie, but I feel like it's too brief in the animated film. Losing a limb is a big deal, and it's literally life-changing, so of course it's going to evoke emotion. The way that Mason Thames, who plays Hiccup, showed that emotion in this scene in the movie was beautiful. It was so beautifully done. He really captured the emotions that Hiccup would be feeling in that moment when he looks down and realizes he has a prosthetic on. And so that moment was much longer and much more emotional in the live action, and that is one difference that I absolutely adored compared to the animated version. That is the sort of changes that I was hoping for with this live action, and they did it. And yeah, the emotion just throughout the movie was so good. so good. So that was a change that they did in this movie, and throughout the film there were actually quite a lot of differences. So let me go into some detail with some of the differences that I noticed and that really stood out to me. In the scene in the Great Hall, when right before Hiccup reads the Great Book of Dragons, he has a moment with Astrid, and he actually tells her how he thinks that they're wrong about dragons in that moment. That is way earlier than he says anything to her in the movie about how he feels about dragons, and I really liked that additional detail because I think it then made more sense later on when Astrid took his side, because he had her kind of questioning things and questioning him much earlier on in the movie with the comments that he made in that scene. There were several lines added in throughout the movie about Valka. They never name dropped her, but they mentioned Hiccup's mum, and they mentioned her being taken by a dragon multiple times. In the original animated movie, we don't find out anything about his mum, but in the live action, they referenced it many times, and I loved that difference because it adds so much depth to character decisions in this movie. It makes so much more sense how Stoick acts and how Hiccup acts when you have that added context of what happened to Valka. Wonderful addition that I'm so glad that they did. It really worked. It really added to the story, and I loved that change so much. I think all of the line changes and additions in this movie were done so well because they were there to add context and understanding in a way that the original animated movie kind of missed out on. I think it was quite refreshing that this movie wasn't a line for line exact replica of the animated version. The one change in this movie that I do have a problem with is they removed the scene where Hiccup and Toothless are on a little island, and those terrible terrors come along and try to steal Toothless's food, and then he shoots one of them in the mouth, and Hiccup's like, oh, you're not so fireproof on the inside, are you? That scene wasn't in this movie at all. They completely cut it, which initially I was like, oh, that's fine, it's kind of like a little filler scene, so it doesn't really make much of a difference if it's not there in the movie. But then we got to the end fight, and I was like, no, hang on a second, it is important to the movie. That terrible terror scene foreshadows the end fight. Hiccup defeats the Red Death because he knows that they're not fireproof on the inside because of that scene with the terrible terrors. If the scene with the terrible terrors didn't happen, how does Hiccup know that the dragons aren't fireproof on the inside? How did he get the idea to use that to defeat the Red Death? It still worked without that scene, but it just meant that when he defeated the Red Death, he seemingly came up with that idea completely out of nowhere. I really liked how it connected in the animated movie to that scene with the terrible terrors, how his interactions with dragons allowed him to defeat the Red Death and gave him the knowledge that he has. Like, I loved that correlation between the scenes, and we just didn't get that in the live action because they removed that scene with the terrible terrors. And again, it doesn't ruin the movie. I'm just curious what the thought process was behind that. Oh, and I lied. There's one other change that I did have a problem with. The line at the end of the movie when Hiccup is like talking about the pets, and he says that most places have ponies or parrots. They changed that line in the live action, and he now says ponies and puppies. Puppies. What's wrong with parrots? Dog owners get references in like every movie ever. How to Train Your Dragon is one of the few movies that actually gave parrot owners something to be excited about. And you took that away from us. It's so rude, isn't it, Rosie? Like, justice for pet parrots. A film about flying pets, and you're gonna take out the parrot reference. People ride ponies. Parrots can fly. Put them together, what do you have? Dragons. Ponies and puppies. Puppies! The betrayal that I felt when Hiccup said that line, I have never felt more offended in my life. She's not going to sit quietly, is she? She wants to go in my window, but I have a lot of stuff in my window, and if you go in my window, you're going to throw everything off of it, and it's going to break. That's the tripod. So yeah, that change was just a bit of a stab in the heart right at the end of the movie. It had been good up until then. But then the movie finished. I cried a lot. Stayed for the whole of the credits, and there was actually an end credit scene, which I was surprised by. Although it wasn't very exciting because it was just a repeated scene from within the movie. It wasn't anything new, but I assume it was just there to tease that we're gonna get How to Train Your Dragon 2, except that also wasn't obvious. I don't really know what the purpose of the end credit was, but it was still really cute that it was there. So, you know, it was nice, but it's not really worth staying for the whole of the credits for. So, some of my thoughts after seeing the whole movie. I know a lot of people had issues with the casting. I did not care about the cast. I was very happy with who we got, and they did not disappoint in the movie at all. I absolutely loved all of the casting and the characterization. I think the main thing that sums up this movie is saying it's not a replica. It is definitely nowhere near the same as the animated movie, but not in a bad way. It's its own experience. It's the same characters, it's the same story, it has the same love and care put into it. It has the same messages, it has the same moments. It is, where it matters, the same. But because it's live action, it focuses on different aspects and elements that the animation didn't. There's more emotion, things are done more realistically, there's emphasis on flight scenes and action. I think if you're a fan of the original series, then you will absolutely love this live action. Getting to experience it again, but slightly differently, so there were still surprises, there were still moments that shock you, that make you laugh, that make you cry. And now I am even more excited for How to Train Your Dragon 2 coming out in 2027. I can't wait to see how they do the second one. And I wonder if this means we also end up getting How to Train Your Dragon 3. Part of me is kind of hoping that they actually change things significantly when it comes to How to Train Your Dragon 3, because I think that movie, a lot of us fans weren't 100% happy with that film, and if they make a live action of it, that would actually kind of give them a chance to redeem themselves with it. They could change things, not entirely, but they could definitely change some things about it that would fix it from the original animated version. If they make a live action and it's the exact same, I don't even know if I want to watch that, because I haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon 3 since I saw it in the cinema. I'm too scared to watch it again. It makes me cry too much. I emotionally cannot handle How to Train Your Dragon 3, so how I would handle a live action adaptation of it, we're not going to worry about that until we know if we're actually going to get a live action How to Train Your Dragon 3 or not. The How to Train Your Dragon live action allows us to experience this incredible universe in a different light, and it's magical. Watching the live action is such a magical experience. It's definitely not perfect, I will say that. It isn't the most brilliant, perfectly done movie that I have ever seen. It has got its flaws, but as a movie, as what it was, a live adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon, I think it was done brilliantly. I think it was done so well, and I'm so glad that we got this movie, and I can't wait for the next one. And I think that's all I have to say. What did you guys think? Let me know. Another shout out and thank you to Universal Pictures for inviting me to the screening. I still can't believe I got to attend such an event. Go check out my vlog of that experience, because it really was the coolest thing I've ever done. The last movie review that I posted was of Thunderbolts. If you're into Marvel, check that out. My next review will probably be whatever the next Marvel movie is, which I think is Fantastic Four. That's very exciting. And the next video on my channel will be a concert vlog of The Living Tombstone, because the day after I went to the How to Train Your Dragon screening, I went to a concert to see The Living Tombstone, and I vlogged that, so that'll be the next video. If you're interested in any of that sort of content, make sure to subscribe. If you like this video, give it a like, and I'll see you all in my next one. Goodbye!